Before we get to all the modern wrestling, I got a couple of things out of the files. And one of them I'm going to, you don't know about it. Well, you know about this document. It was talked about at the time and very famous in wrestling, but you don't know that I have it. Do you remember, Brian, last when Joe Pedicino found his rich Nigerian backer and was going to start the Global Wrestling Federation and was talking to every promoter not named Vince McMahon in the world, was actually at one point going to buy the USWA, the Memphis Wrestling Promotion, from Jerry Jarrett. Remember that?
In 1991, I believe, yeah.
Yeah, they even did. That's when I left WCW. I came up and did a TV taping that they did at the Louisville Gardens, and Pedicino was there, and his backer, Olu Oliami, was there. I've mentioned he looked like a Nigerian Louis Armstrong. He was a short little pudgy fellow with the big cheeks. And that's how Pedicino got hooked up with a sportatorium in Dallas and the big plans, and they went on ESPN. And the whole thing was based on this Olu Oliami telling Joe that he had up to $25 million to not contribute, but to invest in running this Global Wrestling Federation, right? And the thing that was helping Joe talk to people and get people's attention, if not their outright slavish devotion because they bought it, all the way, Joe was telling people that Olu Oliami had furnished him a letter of credit from a bank for $25 million, right? You remember this story, Brian?
Of course, it's a pretty notorious story.
What do you think that is?
I didn't know you had the document.
That's a copy of the letter of credit for $25 million that Joe Pedicino copied and gave me to convince me that this thing was going to happen. And Brian, the letter is dated September 27, 1990. Joe gave it to me after I left WCW, which was about a month later. So sometime at the end of that year, beginning of 1991, when I was already coming over, making some shots in the Memphis territory anyway. And even at the age of the 29 years old, even though I'd seen a few things and heard a few things, I wasn't no big-time financial expert. But this, to me, I didn't want to hurt Joe's feelings, because this wasn't one of those cases where the shady promoter has this phony letter of credit and he's trying to bilk people. I think a lot of people may have told you this. Joe Pedicino believed this wholeheartedly, whether it was smoking opium or just it was his dream come true. He believed this, and it was like, I didn't want to hurt his feelings. But can I read you some of this? And you tell me, Brian Last, because you're the next best thing to Warren Buffett. Does this sound like a letter of credit authorization from a bank for $25 million to you?
All right, let's hear it.
Brian, you might want to Google a little bit while I'm reading this, because the bank that this is drawn on is the First Fidelity Revenue Trust Limited at 1300 Jefferson Boulevard in Warwick, Rhode Island. I have a phone number here as well, if that helps. They have offices in New York, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Tampa, Dallas, and Cleveland.
Give me the name of the bank again.
First Fidelity Revenue Trust Limited, Warwick, Rhode Island. And this letter dated, as I said, September 27, 1992, Mr. J, not like Jay Briscoe, but J, the letter to J. Olu Oliami, president of Kongi Sports and Entertainment Incorporated, KONGI. And this was apparently the sports and entertainment company that Mr. Oliami convinced Joe Pedicino was an ongoing concern with $25 million spent in the wrestling business. And it is reinvestment funding of $25 million for wrestling and entertainment promotions. Dear Mr. Oliami, we are happy to inform you that after a careful review of your business plans and the extensive background of your management staff, together with supporting financial documents, a decision has been made by our trustees to make available a line of credit of $25 million. In parentheses, the numbers, $25 million. Terms. The credit shall be enforced for a term of 5 years with interest-only payments during this period on a drawn-down basis at our option, and your payment of the interest as set forth under rate below, the loan may be converted to a long-term debt equity portfolio. Now, see right there, everybody in the wrestling business, every wrestler, every manager, referee, whatever, as soon as they read that, well, they're lost already, right? Unless you hit the stray one that took finances in school somehow. Rate. The notes on the use portion shall bear interest at U.S. prime plus 2%, such rate to be computed and adjusted annually. In the event the credit line is not converted as proposed, all principal amount or the used portion shall be paid up at the end of 5 years together with the accrued interest, if any. And they've kind of lost me too by this point, because does this make sense, Brian?
I know it's not copy and paste because of the year, but it just sounds like they copy and pasted something from a whole bunch of different things and put it together.
Yes, use of funds. The use of funds shall include, but not limited to, A, acquisitions of some existing wrestling federation, B, marketing, TV productions, promotions, and syndications, C, payroll and merchandising, etc. Management must furnish our trust with progress reports as to the performance of the company every quarter. These reports shall be comprised of operating statements and updates on staffing. Prepayment clause. This loan could be prepaid at any time after the initial 2 years of the loan. Any prepayment prior to this time shall carry a 2% penalty. Collateral. What are they putting up for collateral?
Yeah. That's what I've been waiting for.
The loan shall be collateralized by liens on all assets of J. Oliami, including corporate and personal as applicable. All syndication rights, merchandising, and products rights together with any other assets of Congi Sports Incorporated or other collateral deemed needed. So that was a half a sentence. Personal as applicable was period, and then all syndication rights, merchandising, and products rights together with any other assets of Congi Sports Incorporated or other collateral deemed needed. General terms. We understand that your company will be able to secure all necessary licenses and permits to facilitate effective operations of a wrestling promotion. This commitment is irrevocable and shall remain in force for a period of 120 days and subject to the conditions of collateral misspelled requirements. Closing shall take place on or before this initial period. All or any confirmations of this commitment could be made by phone call or in writing as may be authorized. We are looking forward to an amicable working relationship. Best regards, the president of First Fidelity Revenue Trust Limited is apparently a fellow, or was in 1990, named R. Mansfield Leach. Banker Leach.
The address you gave in Warwick, Rhode Island.
1300 Jefferson Boulevard.
Was that for him or the bank?
That was for First Fidelity Revenue Trust Limited.
Okay, it's a 2-story office with a warehouse. They didn't have this back then, this technology where you could just look it up and there's a bunch of trucks in the parking lot.
Well, now wait, they could have torn this big bank with offices in New York, Philadelphia, Atlanta, Tampa, Dallas, and Cleveland down and put up a warehouse in 30 years.
That's true. It could have been this.
Is there?
It could have been that this industrial zone at one point was the business zone of Warwick, Rhode Island.
Of Warwick, Rhode Island. Well, it's a small state, a small town. Is there a First Fidelity Revenue Trust Limited?
Oh, no. No. There's no bank or anything with that name.
Okay, there's a phone number.
Oh. I'm not going to call. Well, we can call it if you wanted to, but let's.
Well, it's 30 years after the fact. But here's the thing. If they were going to make up a fake bank at an address that back 30 years ago, unless you were in Warwick, Rhode Island, you couldn't really trace, why would they put a phone? Maybe they had somebody manning the phone. Hello?
In the warehouse.
Fidelity Revenue Trust.
Yeah, in the warehouse.
401-732. Well, I won't go any further. It'll just cause somebody else problems. But this letter is not only what Joe Pedicino was hanging his hopes and dreams on and trying to buy wrestling promotions, but this also is what I was trying to do Joe a favor. He got me booked with the LPWA to do commentary that year. I was setting up Smoky Mountain Wrestling, made me some extra money. I was trying to do him a favor, but from the time I saw this fucking guy in person and then read this document, that's why, and then he brought us to Dallas, and I didn't think he was going to screw me on money that he agreed to pay me, and he didn't. But he brought me and Stan to Dallas for that one taping. And we fly in from Charlotte, and we weren't charging him that much money, but we had mentioned, okay, and he's getting a hotel too, right? And we got our own rental car to go from the Dallas airport down to the Sportatorium and back. But we go to this hotel that he's got the guys staying at. And I'd lived there for 6 months, 5 years previously, and I'd never even gotten off this exit. It was in between the airport and downtown Dallas. And it's this fucking old roadside motel that I don't know what kind of business was normally going on there, but it didn't look from the outside like I was going to like the inside. And when I opened it, and he had us rooming with other people. And like doubling up, and went, no, Stan got his room, I get my room. That's our deal. But I opened the door to the room, and there was one table lamp in this entire room. There was this small window that jutted out opened out into the courtyard, which was shaded from the sun by nearby buildings. And there was not one other functioning light in the whole hotel room except for in the bathroom. So it was like walking into a fucking cave. You couldn't see the dirt. And we turned around and went back to the La Quinta that we used to stay at in the world-class days. And when I got there, I told Joe that he had two extra rooms at the Fall and Crawl Motel. And we had a nice evening working there. And then I think shortly after that, he found out that First Fidelity Revenue Trust Limited and Mr. Oliami and Mr. Leach probably weren't all they were cracked up to be, and he cut the budget, and that's when I guess it was Global Wrestling. That's when he got into business with the Max Andrews, wasn't it? Or was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. The syndicator for some of the other world-class shows, and they soldiered on for a while.
Was he syndicating Jarrett at Texas at that time? Yeah.
When the Von Erichs tried to talk Jerry Jarrett into taking over world-class and revamping the business, then Max Andrews was the syndicator, and then the Von Erichs didn't want Jerry Jarrett to take over the business after he did, and he gave it back to him, and then they went, yeah.
I think only one Von Erich wanted Jerry Jarrett to come in and save the business. The other two resented him. Well, at least one of them resented him being there, Kevin. But Fritz obviously wanted Jerry Jarrett to be there. I wanted him to be there. He sold him his shares of the company.
Yeah, I think he wanted him to take that rotten turkey a week after Thanksgiving off of his hands. But